Although there is grief today as we say goodbye, there is gratitude for your life. We are truly grateful for the privilege of having shared life with you. But rest now at the end of your days. Rest in the hearts and the minds of those who love you. And so with love, we shall leave you in peace. With respect, we say today, goodbye.
I was 16 years old, and that was the song they played as they closed the curtains on his coffin in the church. It was absolutely packed. It was a sad day, but they played that song. Well, I can tell you why it was the perfect song to say goodbye to him. Like the lazy ocean hugs the shore, hold me close, sway me more. What a tune! It takes you straight away to a moment, a nightclub in Ibiza, dancing, swaying. It's a moment I didn't experience because in the late 90s, I was 5 years old. But I can imagine someone somewhere dancing, partying, drinking to that song all night long. You know, I remember the first time I lost someone. It was my nan on my mum's side in the year 2000. And I'm not really sure I knew what was going on at the time. Like, they didn't let me go to the funeral. I was too young, I was 6 years old. But my mum, she took me, my younger brother by 2 years, and my 4 close cousins out for a drive. You know, it was a bit of a different, special day. We chewed bubble gum, blew big bubbles. Maybe we even went bowling, you know, just like a little afternoon out. And all of this was happening while we were doing that. The rest of my family was sorting out my nan's affairs with my granddad, and I didn't know him that well, but I'll come back to him later. Now, what I'm going to tell you, I've never told anyone before. Back to the crematorium, 2010, saying goodbye to this man that was like an uncle to me, except he wasn't my uncle. He was one of my dad's best mates from his school days and throughout life. My almost uncle. One of the front members from the band he was in was at the funeral, you know, still in a snazzy suit. His big hair's slightly smaller now, and he said some words about this man we both lost. About the glory days, the private jets, the parties, touring the world. My dad said some words too. And I could see it was painful for him to lose a friend, a brother. My dad, he told me about this one time when I was a baby. So my dad, he was a radio broadcaster back in the day. And he was in the middle of a live program, right? And me and my almost uncle are on the other side of the glass, and he's looking after me. And I look up at him and, yeah, offer him some sweets. So, do you want to just go and take some? That's cool. Yeah, you want some as well? Do you want some sweets? Yeah. So like I said, I offer him some sweets, and little did he know, they've been in and out of my mouth. My dad, on the other side of the glass, he tries to warn him, but it's too late. He got a nice taste of baby drool flavoured candy. There were lots of memories like this, of laughter, of good times, memories of my dad and him on holiday in Spain, and my almost uncle getting carried away on the back of a donkey in the dark. But that's not my story to tell, and it's a bit of a long one, so. But he always said how much he loved carrying me, my almost uncle. But they carry him now, back to the crematorium. 6 men, 3 on either side of his coffin. One of them being my dad, and the others his other school friends. They place him at the top of the room, and the curtains close on his coffin like a theatre show finale, except for there's no round of applause because it's a funeral, people crying and stuff. Not really the place for applause. So, but they play that song, and it blares out of the church speakers, and there's rows and rows of packed seating, people queuing out the door to say goodbye to him. Goodbye, my almost uncle. It's here, sadly, where his story ends, as we crowded out to the church graveyard. It's not here, though, where his story begins. My almost uncle, the talented musician, he had an inspiring music career. But it wasn't before long that the red carpet leading to the private jets was pulled fast from under him. And it was unnoticed at first, but later his health deteriorated. We used to visit him at his house in August Street, and it was, we watched him deteriorate. He was in and out of hospital, and then one day he was gone. I was 16, and I'd known him my whole life, and then he was gone. He died in August Street when I knew him, just a stone's throw away from where I was born and where my parents grew up. You see, it all happened in the same area. This little built-up town of brutalist buildings is the centre of our story. South East London, just off of the Thames, across the river from Barton. Let's call this town Riverview. Riverview. I call it the town without pity. My almost uncle died in August Street in Riverview, and he was famous in a small way for 2 90s hits. He was known locally, loved eternally, and he loved that time. Proper superstar up until his death in 2010. Now, let's go back 10 years. The year 2000. I was 6 years old, and like I said, my nan passed away. And all of my family had moved out of the grey slabs Riverview, the town without pity.
If we stop to gaze upon a star, people talk about how bad we are. Ours is not an easy age. We are tigers in a cage. What a town without pity can do. Though the young have problems, many problems.
2000. My almost uncle is on top of the pops with the band's next song. And you know what, let me show you what the picture is. It's not the best picture, I did print it off, but that's him, the drummer. 2000. This is also the year that my nan passed away, and like I told you, I wasn't at the funeral. I was too young, 6 years old. That's me. After that. I want it back at the end though. You can't. Yeah, like I said, I was too young. And I remember my mum telling me that my nan loved the singer Gene Pitney, the singer of that song, A Town Without Pity. It's funny how I remember things. When my nan passed away, my granddad disappeared off the face of the earth, but he wasn't dead, he was just gone. We thought he didn't want to know us. It turned out that he had remarried and he'd been living with his new wife in my grandparents' house. Turns out also that he had dementia. You know, this dementia, it caused him to have episodes, and after a while, his new wife committed him to a mental health hospital, and then he went into a care home. They say that losing my nan caused the early onset dementia, the trauma. It was 2016. I'm 22, and I remember it was a baking hot summer. You probably remember it. And we got a call out of the blue to tell us the whereabouts of my granddad. We went and visited him, took the trip while we could. The sun rose over the tower blocks surrounding the home. I go up the stale smelling elevator, passing by old faces, but not familiar ones. There is a rainbow corridor of rooms. Behind each door sits grey faces, waiting and alone. Cold, gaunt, confused. His was the yellow door. The last time I saw him, I was 6 years old, and this was the first time I was seeing him again after all these years. He sat slumped down in that chair, looking out into the distance, and I leaned down to speak to him. Hello? He looks very thirsty, dry mouth, parched. There's a woman sat next to him. She tells me she used to work at Buckingham Palace. He doesn't see her though. I notice her, but I don't know her. He seems happy. He seems happy. They write this in his medical log every day. I think happy, jaundice. We don't know what it is he's feeling. He doesn't know what it is he's feeling. He might know for a minute and then it's gone. Happy. Yeah. I've known happiness, and I'm not sure it ever looked like this. You see, happiness for most evokes the colour yellow, like his door. Happiness, for me, in this sort of place, should be left at the door. Me, I feel anger, frustration, confusion. I grind my teeth because I've got no words. Teeth. Granddad's got no teeth. If he did, I think they'd be, well, yellow. Mum says he hasn't had teeth for a long time because he used to eat a lot of sweets. And I love sweets as well, but I'm reminded of the bubble gum that I blew on the day we said goodbye to this man's wife. And I'm reminded of the sweets that I gave to my almost uncle directly from my infant mouth. My granddad, too, now is somewhat like a child. He can't support his weight, he can't speak. There's words, but there's no sense. They say they know him, the carers, you know, but they know fragments, they don't know him. And it's like a photograph from the forgotten past, and I try and find a memory of him, but I can't. And sometimes when no one's looking, I kiss the photographs because I hope he can feel it. They kiss him, the carers, he kisses me. I'm not sure it matters that it's me. They say, he's lovely. He replies back, lovely. Lovely, beautiful, marvellous. Who is, what is? my nan, his second wife. They were beautiful to him once. This isn't beautiful to me. Why didn't I know he was in here? Why didn't you tell me before that he was in this home? He stares at me. He's looking past me into the corridor, into nothing. But that for him must be something. I tried to give him some of his drink. He coughs and he holds my hands and his fingernails are yellow. And there's a yellow stain on his shirt, probably from the crushed up food they're feeding him. And I think more and more about the colour yellow and how it must be significant. There are yellow lines from the care home to his house of forgotten memories. And I went home and I read and I researched more about the colour yellow. I read about how doctors fed patients with memory affecting disorders their food on yellow plates and to improve their eating experience. But Grandad doesn't eat his food on a yellow plate, and I want to tell the care home because maybe it'll do something. And I want to do something, anything, probably do nothing. I think more about the colour yellow, yellow canaries sent down mine shafts, trapped. The birds outside tweet free, and he's been trapped in this home for a long time. In 2016, we got the call to say that he'd been in this home 12 or 13 years, since 2003 or 2004, and in that time I had to say goodbye to a lot of people, including my almost uncle. Remember him? Let's call him Mr. A for now. And let's call my granddad Mr. B, because that's what they called him in the care home. They shortened his name like a friend would. They didn't know him. Hello, Mr. B, they'd say. I could picture it on his headstone now. R.I.P. Mr. B. I still had a few moments with him before he passed away, and I actually haven't finished telling you about my almost uncle yet, Mr. A. It was 2007 when that song came out, and I would have been visiting my almost uncle, Mr. A, when he was in good health then. I didn't know my granddad, Mr. B, yet, but he would have been in the care home. We found out that his new wife and her adult children had gone into my grandparents' house in 2016 and cleared everything out. All of my grandparents' belongings gone and his new wife gone. The records in the care home show that she visited him before she passed away on 3 occasions. The first 2 with her adult children, and on the last occasion by herself. The last time she visited, my granddad had an angry outburst, telling her to get out. Get out! Get out! But what did he mean? To get out of the care home or get out of my grandparents' house? We'll never know, but what we do know is that he was left with nothing. When he was brought into the care home, he had none of his own possessions or belongings, and he used to rub his fingers together. And I said to my mum, what if that's because he used to wear these big gold rings, like, you know, the big chunky Del Boy ones, and he had no rings. He did have a picture on his bedroom wall, and I thought it was of his new family. But it turns out that it was put there by one of the other residents, or he'd taken it while wandering around. So the only thing he had left weren't even his. It went into a black bin bag, along with all of his other belongings, when he passed away. That's now. See, the thing I think that hurts the most. Remember I told you about Riverview, the town where my grandparents and my parents had moved away from. My granddad found his way into that care home behind that yellow door in Riverview. The very town he'd moved away from. Mr. B was in a care home that was 0.3 miles, just a 5-minute walk, just a 2-minute drive from where Mr. A used to live. See, if you can picture it, just behind Mr. A's house sat Mr. B in a care home where he was looking out onto a car park where I could get in a car and drive 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes is shorter than the length of the song they played as they closed the curtains on his coffin at his funeral. And I remember being outside his house that day, getting ready to go to the church that the care home is behind. He would have been there, my granddad, for 7 or 8 years, and we didn't know. We just thought he didn't want to know us. He would have been there, and he couldn't contact us, we couldn't contact him. He couldn't communicate verbally, he lost his capacity. There were some animals in the garden at the care home, a garden my granddad wasn't allowed in. But I imagine that if the wind had blown in the right direction, I might have been able to hear those animals, and I might have been able to find him, to know him, to see him and know him. I couldn't walk there. I couldn't walk there to him.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be
You're like stars of the show. Listen about you. Just one, guys. It's like not long, and you sit to the end of the song. I've got a lot of balloons. I'm gonna do my best. Sorry. I'll just give you some. I don't know if you're gonna pass it or not. Getting one involved. We're gonna get this done quicker together. Really sorry. Just while I'm back there and you're done, I've got some bits to do. Thank you. Thanks guys, you're stars. Brilliant. Yeah. I see one more, I don't know. Yeah, get that back. That's pathetic. 2016. I was traveling in Spain and I decided to sing that song on the karaoke, you know, just for a laugh with my mates. My granddad on my dad's side was Scottish, and when I was out there, I always thought of Mr. B. I thought I'd see him somewhere, you know, just on the beach, sunbathing, getting a tan. You know, had he remarried and retired abroad. And you know what, I've thrown a lot of dates and numbers and years at you, but I did the maths. And he was in that care home for 13 years. 13 years before we knew him again, and how unlucky, like unlucky number 13. That's what they would have called out in the care home bingo if they did that sort of thing. But when I was in Spain singing that song, he was 6,445.93 miles away. Okay, and that's the shortest distance by Spain to the UK by air. But I didn't put that out. I googled that one. I can't lie. But the point is, you know, it was just over 5,000 miles by plane, and I would walk 500 miles and 500 more. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I loved singing that song for a couple of years. But no, I didn't need to walk 50, 10, or 5. I had to walk less than 1 mile, 0.3 miles short of 500 meters to see my granddad when he was there in that home. Just 20 minutes from where I was born and 40 minutes from where I grew up, and just 15 minutes from where his wife, my nan, was buried, and we would go and clean her grave and leave flowers twice a year for years and years. When my mum got the call to ask if she was the daughter of Mr. B, what happened? Why now? Why not before? How did they find us? Like, why not before? We went and visited him when we knew, and one day they told us he was unwell. And we drove to the hospital and waited in the car park for him in the dark. We called care home. They didn't pick up. Called us back. Sorry, we're taking him a 6 AM bread delivery. They said that the ambulance wasn't going to bring him urgently because he wasn't high up the list. And I waited there in the hospital car park, the hospital where my almost uncle, Mr. A, would have been brought, just around the corner from where he had his wake. After a few days, my granddad went back to the care home, and in 2018 he passed away. I remember that summer, baking hot, and I went to get my granddad an ice cream from the shop on the corner of where my almost uncle lived. Just drive or walk away. And it was just like a sweet treat, and that was the last time I saw my granddad. And I think the reason why I'm telling you this is because I feel some sense of regret. It hurts, and I don't want you to hurt. Talk to your family, your friends, your loved ones. Reach out, connect, hold on, listen, learn. Just still trying to piece it all together to connect the dots and carry on walking and maybe just around the corner, you will find someone or something that has been missing, like I did. For better or for worse, in sickness, missing them. I didn't know him, but I miss him. R.I.P. Mr. A. R.I.P. Mr. B. All the way final letters of the alphabet. X. I'm still asking why. And now, in your absence, I hope you can catch some. It's now you will sleep.
There is grief today and tomorrow, but there is gratitude for your life. But rest now. In love, we leave you all in peace. And with respect, I bid you farewell.